Hi guys, welcome to my review for Star Trek Voyager, Season 1, Episode 1, entitled Caretaker Part 1. I love the opening of this episode with Tuvok, B'Elanna, and Chakotay being chased by the Cardassians and them coming across a storm in space. And after some pew pew, they go into that storm and then they disappear. I think that that is a great inciting incident that the writers came up with to sort of push the story forward. I love the introduction scene of Catherine Janeway when she basically forces Tom Paris to help the crew of Voyager to find Tuvok, B'Elanna, and Chakotay. And the reasoning that she uses for it is she takes it from the angle of, oh, it's not because of Chakotay and it's not because of B'Elanna, it's because of Tuvok. Tuvok was a spy on that ship and he hasn't reported back in 2 weeks, and that's very unusual, and I want to go and find him. But also, the great thing that this scene does is it really introduces a giant mystery about Tom Paris as to why he's arrested and what he did to end up being there. And I love the fact that throughout this episode, the writers throw hats on the ground to lead the audience into thinking one thing, but once Tom actually reveals a version of how he ended up in prison to Harry Kim, he does it in such a way where you kind of believe him, but you don't kind of want to believe him based on what the individuals around him have said about him and have said about his reputation when it comes to that as well. Essentially, Star Trek Voyager is Star Trek's version of Castaway. And I love the overall conceit. You get introduced to a bunch of characters. You get introduced to the helmsman, you get introduced to the doctor, and you get introduced to the first officer. And once they come across that same plasma storm, those individuals that I just mentioned, a pilot is the opportunity for the storytellers to introduce us to the people that we're going to be spending time with throughout this first season or throughout the series as a whole. And the fact that the writers of this series take that concept and flip it on its head by killing half of them is absolutely wonderful, and it is a brilliant story tactic, so to speak. I also like the science fiction quirk to this episode in that when Voyager ends up going to the Delta Quadrant, they come across a Earth-like planet, but essentially it is a desert, and you have two groups of people living on this planet. You have the Kazon on the top, which are basically like space gangsters, and you have people also living on that planet but underneath the surface, and they are called the Okampa. I love the way that the being that caused this planet to be a desert planet feels responsible for the Okampa. He feels responsible for the Okampa so much that he has been kidnapping other races to hopefully combine his DNA with theirs, so when he dies, the individual that he finds will take his place and take care of the Okampa. The reason why I love that is because no matter what you've done to an individual, if you're related, at some point, you have to stop caring for them, and you have to teach them how to become self-sufficient, and you have to teach them how to stand up on their own 2 feet. And I really don't think that the caretaker understood that concept until he had that conversation with Catherine Janeway in the barn after she figured out what he was ultimately doing and why he was doing everything that he was doing. It's kind of funny how Catherine says one thing to the caretaker. I mean, she could have said it to him because he was dying, but she says one thing to the caretaker, and after trying to negotiate with the Kazon, that it which didn't go well, she ends up destroying the device that could bring her back home. If that is not a Starfleet captain in a nutshell, I don't know what is. That is an individual who is badass, who will do anything for anyone who needs her help, and that is someone who believes in the greater good. I absolutely love that character trait. The individual that comes aboard the Voyager to help the Voyager navigate through the Delta Quadrant comes to them by sort of shady means, and that individual is Neelix. And he tells them one thing, but once he gets down to the planet, it turns out that he didn't really want this one thing. He wanted he wanted this girl over here that essentially was being held captive by the Kazon. I really, really liked that dynamic to Neelix, in that when he first met the Voyager crew, he told them one thing, but he wanted something else. That is really good misdirection, and that's really good storytelling. And I really like that aspect of this episode. I like the fact that we have a character who is an engineer, and she's half human, and she's half Klingon. I really like Alana Torres. Or my favorite thing about this episode is the character arc for Tom Paris. Like I mentioned in my opening, Tom Paris is set up as someone who did something so unforgivable that he ended up in jail because of what he did. But throughout the episode, the writers give the audience several opportunities to show us that Tom Paris is so much more than what people are saying about him. And I really, really, really love the fact that at the end of the day, the individual that hates Tom the most and that judges him the most in Chakotay ends up being the individual that has to be saved by him. And that now moving forward, he has a life debt to him because he saved him. I personally think that this is one of the best 90s first episodes of Star Trek ever. That's just me because I love Voyager so much. In the comments below, if you've seen this episode, tell me what you liked about it or tell me what you didn't like about it. Until next time, I'll see you when I see you.
So much happened here, and so much is about to.